They laughed when the Boston heiress arrived, abandoned at the station for being too refined, too weak. But no one saw the shadow waiting, an alpha wolf hiding secrets that could change her life forever. Secrets, danger, and a forbidden desire are about to collide in a town where nothing is as it seems, and no heart is safe. Before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you won't miss a single twist of this thrilling, fated mate romance. Now, let's begin Clara's story. The train screeched to a halt, sending clouds of dust spiraling into the Montana sky. Clara Winslow stepped onto the rough wooden platform of Silver Ridge, her silk gloves taut around the handle of her small trunk. The air smelled of pine, leather, and something harsher. Danger, she realized, though she didn't know it yet. Her heart pounded in expectation. After weeks of letters, promises, and careful calculations, she was here to meet the man she was supposed to marry, a man she had never seen in person. But hope twisted into unease as she scanned the station, eyes straining through the sun-scorched haze. And then she saw him, the man who was supposed to be her husband, sitting astride his horse, flanked by smug townsmen. His gaze lingered on her as if measuring a flaw. Her chest tightened and a pang of dread crept up her spine. "You're too refined," he said, loud enough for the few curious townsfolk to hear. The words cut through the morning air like a blade. "Too delicate. Not what I need here." The laughter came first, sharp, cruel, and contagious. Clara's cheeks burned as fingers gripped her gloves. She tried to speak, to defend herself, but no sound came. Her trunk slipped from her hand, thudding against the wooden planks. Pride she had carried like armor, now lay shattered at her feet. Her groom tossed a dismissive glance, spurred his horse and rode off, leaving her alone under the blazing sun. Whispers followed. She won't survive here. Not with those hands, that mind, that elegance. Tears burned her eyes, but they weren't for humiliation. They were for the crushing isolation she had never felt before. And yet, beneath the sting, a strange heat of defiance flickered inside her chest. She would survive. She had to. A sudden chill ran down her spine, as though someone or something had stepped out of the shadows behind her. Her gaze darted up, and there, at the edge of the platform, stood a figure cloaked in dust and shadow. He didn't move like the townsfolk, didn't carry the casual indifference of the men she had glimpsed earlier. His presence demanded attention. The stranger's eyes caught hers, amber, fierce, and unsettlingly calm, holding a depth that made her chest flutter and stomach tighten. He didn't approach with words, but with a force that pulled, magnetic and terrifying. "You're far from safe here," he said, his voice low, smooth, carrying a weight she couldn't yet name. Clara's breath hitched. Something in the pit of her stomach warned her that this man, this Marshal Colton Kane, was no ordinary protector. Danger lingered in him, wild and restrained, and she found herself trembling in a way that was both fear and something far more intoxicating. A gust of wind whipped her hair across her face, and she blinked against the dust. When she looked up again, he was still there, silent, unwavering, watching her with that unnerving intensity. And then, just as her pulse threatened to betray her, she realized the truth in a heartbeat. This man, this shadowed, silent force, was going to change everything. The wind shifted, carrying the faint scent of pine, smoke, and something wild. Colton's jaw tightened. His amber eyes flicked to the horizon. "You don't know the danger yet, but it's already found you." Clara's wide-eyed gaze, heart hammering, as Colton Kane steps off the shadows of the platform and into her life. The dust swirled around the platform as Colton Kane's boots crunched over the wooden planks. Clara's heart thudded in her chest, half from fear, half from the magnetic pull of his presence. Without a word, he gestured toward the narrow path leading out of the station, his amber eyes fixed on hers with an intensity that made her pulse spike. "Come with me," he said, his voice low, smooth, carrying a weight she couldn't yet name. Clara's breath hitched. Something in the pit of her stomach warned her that this man, this Marshal Colton Kane, was no ordinary protector. Danger lingered in him, wild and restrained, and she found herself trembling in a way that was both fear and something far more intoxicating. "He said, voice low, authoritative, yet threaded with something unreadable. Warning, maybe desire. Her lips parted, caught between protest and instinct. Something deep inside her urged compliance, something she didn't yet understand. They walked in silence along the winding dirt road. The sun blazed overhead, but a shadow seemed to trail Colton, cloaking him in a protective aura. Clara stole glances at him, noticing the power coiled in his shoulders, the way his fingers brushed the brim of his hat with careful precision. Every movement radiated a controlled strength, a danger she couldn't ignore. "Where are we going?" she finally asked, her voice trembling with a mixture of defiance and curiosity. "Somewhere safe," he replied, the words simple, but the underlying promise heavy with unspoken weight. The cabin emerged from the tree line like a sanctuary carved from the wilderness. Its wooden beams were worn, sturdy, and smelled faintly of pine and smoke. Colton opened the door and stepped aside, an invitation that made Clara hesitate just a fraction too long. When she crossed the threshold, the warmth inside pressed against her like a physical presence. He didn't say a word. He simply stood, arms folded, watching her move through the small space. Clara's fingers brushed a rough-hewn table, and the subtle warmth of her own nerves mingled with the scent of him. Earthy, musky, with an undertone of something wild and compelling. Her pulse quickened. She was painfully aware of the space between them, the invisible thread pulling tighter with every breath. "You're tense," Colton remarked softly, stepping closer. The heat from his body brushed against hers, subtle, electric. "Relax." She tried, she really did, but the intensity in his amber gaze and the sheer presence of him made her tremble. Her hand accidentally grazed his as she reached for a chair, and the brush of his skin sent a thrill up her spine that made her heart stutter. He didn't pull away. He just lingered, his eyes darkening, unreadable. "Your pulse. It's racing," he murmured, voice a low rumble that vibrated against her ear. Clara swallowed hard, forcing her composure. She told herself it was fear, yet something deeper, something hotter, stirred within her, a yearning she didn't dare name. Colton's jaw tightened, his senses twitching. The faintest flicker of his wolf side surfaced, his lips pressing into a thin line as the air between them seemed to hum. Her scent, sharp, sweet, and intoxicating, hit him full force, setting nerves on fire, instincts on edge. "Clara," he breathed, almost a growl. His hand hovered near hers, hesitant, dangerous, commanding all at once. She could feel the tension coiling between them like a taut wire, waiting to snap. A shiver ran down her spine, part anticipation, part fear, as she realized the truth she couldn't yet name. He was not entirely human, and he wanted her in ways that terrified and thrilled her at the same time. The night pressed in, wind rattling the cabin walls, and Colton's amber eyes never left hers. His wolf instincts flared again, sharper this time, threatening to break the fragile barrier between desire and danger. Colton inhaled sharply, nostrils flaring, and whispered, "You smell like fire, like temptation, and I can't control it." The room seemed to shrink around them, the air electric, suffocating, as Clara's heartbeat raced, caught between surrender and survival. The fire outside the cabin crackled, mirroring the one inside, as she realized this was only the beginning. The fire's warmth lingered on Clara's skin long after the flames had dimmed. She stayed by the cabin window, heart still hammering, replaying Colton's words in her mind. "You smell like fire, like temptation, and I can't control it." Her body shivered, not entirely from the cool night air. Something dangerous, something thrilling had been unleashed, and she didn't yet know how to tame it. Morning arrived with a sharp chill. Clara forced herself into composure, wrapping a woolen shawl around her shoulders. Today she would explore Silver Ridge, attempt to blend into this wild frontier town, and maybe, just maybe, uncover a hint about her cousin's fate. The townsfolk regarded her with veiled curiosity and something darker, something hesitant. Mothers tugged children away. Men lowered their gazes. But what caught Clara's attention wasn't just their whispering. It was the way their eyes flicked toward Colton's cabin at the edge of town, the unspoken respect or fear that rippled through their stares. Clara's pulse quickened. Her curiosity collided with caution. What had she stepped into? As she walked the dirt streets, she noticed subtle hints linking Colton to her cousin's disappearance. A tattered poster nailed to a fence bore a faded sketch of her cousin, dated months ago. Scribbled beneath were cryptic letters. He knows. He hides the truth. Her breath hitched. Was Colton somehow involved? The thought stung like betrayal, yet a part of her refused to believe it. She had felt his strength, his restraint, his dangerous magnetism. But could someone so alluring be capable of harm? A sudden movement at the edge of the street made her spin. A masked figure slipped behind the crates outside the general store, lingering just long enough for Clara's mind to catch the shadowed outline. Her pulse thundered. A thrill of fear mixed with undeniable arousal surged through her. Someone was watching, someone who knew more than they should. She took a cautious step forward, only for a hand, warm, strong, impossibly certain, clamped over her arm. Clara. Colton's amber eyes blazed as he pressed her against the alley wall, the scent of him overpowering her senses. Her breath hitched, heart racing at the proximity, at the heat radiating from his body. Every nerve screamed in dangerous anticipation, part desire, part fear. You shouldn't be wandering alone, he murmured, voice low, gravelly, carrying the weight of both warning and possessive hunger. His hand brushed hers in a fleeting electric touch, enough to make her pulse stutter, enough to make her knees tremble. Clara tried to speak, tried to question, but words caught in her throat. He leaned closer, and she felt the raw power coiled beneath his skin, the unspoken threat and promise of a man, and a wolf who could annihilate any threat with ease. Danger is closer than you think, Colton whispered, lips almost brushing her ear. And it's not coming from the shadows outside. It's coming from the past we both can't escape. A gust of wind rattled the shutters, carrying with it the faint scent of smoke and leather. Clara's gaze darted to the empty street, to the shadowy corners where eyes seemed to follow. The masked figure had vanished, but the fear lingered. Colton's fingers tightened slightly on her wrist, grounding her, warning her, claiming her, all at once. She realized with a shiver of dread and desire that no matter how she tried, she was already entwined in his world, in his danger, in him. He drew back just enough to meet her gaze, amber eyes glinting with warning and hunger. Whatever you think you know about me, it isn't enough. You need to trust me, or you won't survive what's coming. The wind whispered through the alley, carrying an unspoken threat, and Clara's stomach dropped as she realized the danger was no longer something she could avoid. The town square was alive with tension as Clara followed Colton through the narrow streets of Silver Ridge. Merchants shouted over the morning bustle, but the energy felt wrong, taut, heavy, as though the air itself was bracing for conflict. Clara's pulse hammered in her chest, every sense on high alert, partly from fear, partly from the lingering pull of Colton's presence. A gang of rough-looking men emerged from the edge of town, their eyes dark with malice and laughter that grated against the nerves. One of them spat on the ground, muttering threats at the townsfolk who dared glance in their direction. Clara froze. The men's attention shifted sharply when they spotted Colton. Tall, broad-shouldered, his amber eyes glinting like fire. "Step aside, girl," one sneered, lunging forward. Colton's voice cut through the chaos, low and controlled but laced with power. "She stays." The man smirked, thinking the marshal's warning empty. Then Colton moved, fluid and deliberate. His shadow stretched long in the sun, and a low, almost inhuman growl vibrated through his chest. Clara's breath caught. His presence was overwhelming, magnetic, dangerous. Suddenly, Colton's form blurred in motion. His hands were faster than the eye could follow, striking and disarming with brutal precision. Clara's pulse raced, the adrenaline making her body acutely aware of every brush of his leather-clad arm against hers as he maneuvered to keep her behind him. Every touch, intentional or not, sent a shiver through her, igniting a heat she could barely contain. The leader of the gang stepped closer, underestimating the danger. Colton's amber eyes narrowed, jaw tightening as something primal surged beneath the surface. His veins pulsed with raw power, and in a blur of motion, he moved like no human should, striking with lethal accuracy, his wolf instincts perfectly synchronized with his human strength. Clara staggered back, heart pounding, both terrified and awed. Every movement of Colton's was mesmerizing, dangerous, and breathtakingly intimate. The brush of his hand as he guided her behind him made her ache with a tension she didn't understand, a desire mingled with fear. When the last of the hostile men fell back, muttering curses, Colton finally released a breath, his chest heaving. He turned toward Clara, amber eyes blazing, a predator and protector in equal measure. She tried to speak, but words failed. Her voice caught in her throat as she stared at him, realization dawning like a thunderclap. This man, this Marshal, was more than human. The subtle shift in the air, the feral strength in his stance, the way his muscles flexed beneath his coat, it all screamed of a secret beyond imagination. Her pulse raced, her body humming with a mix of fear, awe, and an inexplicable, almost magnetic desire. Every instinct in her screamed to reach for him, to feel the power firsthand, but she hesitated, unsure if surrender would be survival, or surrender to something she couldn't control. Colton's gaze lingered on her, amber eyes darkening with a mix of warning and hunger. His voice, low and almost vibrating with restrained power, broke the heavy silence. "You're safe. For now. But you need to understand what's coming, Clara. My world, my strength, it's not something the unprepared survive." Clara swallowed hard, heat pooling deep in her belly as she realized how utterly, and dangerously, captivated she was. A low, menacing growl echoed from the shadows behind them, not human, not any animal she had known. Clara's stomach lurched. The scent hit her first, feral, wild, impossibly sharp, and then it dawned on her, freezing her blood. Colton's secret strength is far more than human, and it's about to be tested. The growl in the shadows faded, leaving a tension in its wake that pressed against Clara's chest like a vice. Her fingers trembled, and her pulse was a frantic drum. Colton's amber eyes never left her, sharp and feral, and for a long moment, the world narrowed to the two of them, the lingering scent of wild power and the rapid thrum of her own awareness. He stepped closer, the heat of his body brushing hers. "You don't understand," he murmured, voice low and dangerous. "The moment you cross this line, there's no going back." Her heart seized. His nearness was intoxicating, magnetic, every nerve alight with desire. And yet, beneath the pull, there was a warning. He was trying to push her away, to protect her, he said. But the ache between them refused to be denied. Clara took a shuddering breath and stepped closer, drawn to the danger, drawn to him, ignoring the rational voice screaming caution. Inside the cabin, silence had settled like a shroud. Clara's eyes swept over the familiar space, seeking grounding, searching for something, anything, to distract her from the dizzying tension. Her gaze caught a slight crack in the wooden paneling of the wall, almost invisible unless you knew where to look. Curiosity flared, and her fingers traced the edge, pressing until a hidden latch gave way. The panel swung open, revealing a narrow stairwell descending into darkness. Her pulse jumped with exhilaration and fear. Torchlight flickered from the room below, casting shadows that danced like specters across the walls. Carefully, she descended, each step a tantalizing brush of anticipation and dread. The hidden room was astonishing, a shrine to Wolfkind, ancient and powerful. Leather-bound journals, talismans, and carved statues of wolves filled the space. The scent of pine and old parchment mingled with a faint iron tang. Her fingers hovered over a folded letter atop a pedestal, and as she opened it, the words hit her like ice. She's tied to the past. I know her cousin's fate, and I must protect her, even if it costs me everything. Clara's breath caught, the fire in her belly igniting anew. Colton had known. All this time, he had known about her cousin's disappearance, and yet he had hidden it from her. Betrayal, confusion, and a surge of longing tangled inside her chest. She realized in that instant that she couldn't deny the pull any longer, the dangerous, thrilling, forbidden desire he awakened in her. Her attention snapped to the faint sound of voices above. She pressed against the wall, straining to hear. Colton's low voice carried through the floorboards, tinged with urgency and an almost feral protectiveness. "She doesn't know the danger and she can't," he murmured, speaking to someone she couldn't see. "Whatever it takes. I'll keep her safe at all costs." A shiver ran through her, half fear, half desire, as she realized just how deep she was already entangled in his world. The strength in his words, the power in his presence, and the raw pull between them made her body hum with an intensity she had never known. And yet, danger loomed beyond the cabin walls, wrapped in secrets neither of them could ignore. Clara's fingers tightened around the edge of the hidden stairwell as she realized she had overheard something she wasn't meant to. Colton was planning something, and whatever it was, it could change everything, including her heart. The hidden letter burned in Clara's hand as she ascended the narrow stairwell, her pulse a fierce drum in her chest. She had overheard Colton, seen the truth about what he had known all along, and the intensity of betrayal and longing twisted together in a heady, suffocating knot. She found him in the main cabin, leaning against the worn wooden railing, eyes dark with restrained ferocity. His jaw tightened at the sight of her, but there was no anger, only a raw, unspoken tension that made her stomach ache. The distance between them felt impossibly short, charged with every unvoiced thought and desire. "You lied to me," Clara said, voice trembling with a mixture of hurt and fury. "You knew about my cousin. You knew and you didn't tell me." Colton's amber eyes softened for a fleeting second, yet the sharp edge beneath them remained. "I did what I had to, Clara, to keep you safe. You don't understand. If you knew everything." Her hands trembled as she stepped closer, eyes locking with his. "You don't get to decide what I can or can't handle." The air between them thickened, heavy with heat, tension, and something far more dangerous. Colton's hand hovered near her face, the magnetic pull of his proximity nearly unbearable. Her breath hitched as his fingers brushed a stray strand of hair from her cheek, a touch electric enough to ignite a fire in her belly. For a long, suspended heartbeat, the argument was forgotten. Desire and frustration collided in a tremor of intimacy. Their faces drew closer, lips almost brushing, the scent of him intoxicating her senses. Her pulse raced, every nerve alight with the thrill of almost surrender. Sparks of fire ignited in her chest, but both pulled back, restraint holding them on the precipice of surrender. Before the tension could explode completely, a soft knock at the cabin door cut through the moment. Clara's eyes flicked toward the sound. A man, cloaked in dust and travel-worn leather, bowed slightly, holding a rolled parchment in one hand. "I was told you might need this," the stranger said, voice smooth, deliberate. "It's a map, truthful to your cousin's last known location." Clara's breath caught. She reached for it, but Colton's hand intercepted hers, strong and possessive. His amber eyes bore into hers, warning and vulnerable all at once. "If you go with me," he said, voice low and commanding. Desire flared beneath his calm, and she felt herself quiver under the intensity. Clara's fingers brushed his as she took the map, and the touch sparked fire in her veins. Her body, her mind, everything in her screamed for him, and yet she sensed the weight of what was coming. Danger, the unknown, the secrets of his past, all threatened to pull them into chaos. Colton turned, packing supplies with meticulous efficiency, each movement deliberate, taut with strength and latent desire. Clara watched him, heart pounding, realizing she was no longer merely drawn to him, she was entwined in the dangerous orbit of his life. As the final pack is slung over his shoulder, Colton meets her gaze, amber eyes glinting with warning and hunger. We leave at first light, and nothing will be the same after tonight. The night wind rattled the cabin windows, carrying a chill and the scent of pine, dust, and something feral. Clara's pulse surged as she realized the journey ahead would test not only their bodies and hearts, but the fragile trust between them. The first light of dawn painted Silver Ridge in soft gold as Colton and Clara mounted their horses. The map, rolled tightly in Clara's hands, seemed heavier than parchment should be, not from its weight, but from the gravity of what it promised, a trail to her cousin, and perhaps answers she wasn't ready for. Colton led the way, his amber eyes scanning the horizon, muscles coiled like a panther ready to spring. Clara's pulse raced, equal parts fear and anticipation, as they rode deeper into the untamed wilderness. Every clatter of hooves over rocks and dry leaves echoed in the canyon like a drumbeat, intensifying the tension that clung to her skin. The canyon loomed ahead, sheer cliffs, jagged rocks, shadows pooling like ink in the morning light. Clara dismounted first, unrolling the map against a rock, tracing the path with careful fingers. Her intelligence, honed from years of reading, observation, and instinct, allowed her to spot subtle signs, footprints barely visible, displaced stones, faint markings that told a story. Colton's eyes lingered on her, amber glinting with admiration and something darker, desire. "You have a sharp mind for this," he murmured, voice low, brushing the back of her hand as he leaned close. The accidental touch sent a shiver racing through her, igniting a fire that made her breath catch. Their bodies were close enough that every subtle brush, every flicker of movement pulsed with unspoken tension. They navigated traps together, loose rocks, hidden pits, and signs of predators. Each successful maneuver deepened their trust and the intimacy between them. Colton's jaw tightened each time she moved deftly through danger, his amber gaze never leaving her. Clara could feel his presence in every fiber of her being, the restrained power, the danger, the latent desire. Night fell, and they set camp beneath a towering cliff, the sky a canopy of stars. A fire crackled between them, throwing flickering shadows across Colton's chiseled features. They sat close, shoulders brushing, the warmth of the fire mingling with the heat of their bodies. Clara's fingers accidentally touched his while reaching for a log. The brush was electric, sending a tremor of need through her, and she felt him tense beneath her touch, amber eyes smoldering. For a moment the world fell away, the canyon, the map, even the danger. Only the heat, the proximity, and the wild pull of desire remained. Yet restraint held them in check. They were too aware of the world outside the firelight, too aware that one misstep could destroy everything. The night grew silent, broken only by distant howls and the rustle of the canyon wind. Clara's heart was still pounding from the near touch, and she realized with a shiver that every moment with Colton was a dangerous dance between desire and survival. From the shadows of the canyon, figures emerged, moving swiftly and silently. Colton's past had found them. Clara's stomach dropped as she realized, before they could react, that they were being ambushed by a gang seeking revenge on Colton's enemies. Amber eyes flared, muscles coiled, and the air thrummed with imminent danger. The shadowed figures closed in, silent and deadly, cutting off any chance of escape. Clara's breath hitched, heart hammering in her chest as she scrambled backward toward Colton. The flickering campfire cast jagged shadows over the canyon walls, throwing their attackers' shapes into grotesque clarity. Colton's hand shot out, gripping her shoulder with a force that was terrifyingly gentle and possessively firm all at once. "Stay behind me," he warned, his voice low, threaded with a feral edge. Amber eyes blazed, pupils dilated, and a rumble deep in his chest vibrated through the night. Clara froze, caught between terror and awe. Then it happened. Colton's form shimmered, muscles rippling and stretching, bones shifting in a way that made her stomach clench. His voice fractured into a growl that sent shivers down her spine, deep, primal, commanding. Fur sprouted along his body, golden eyes glowing brighter, and a power that seemed to pulse from the ground up made the air itself feel electric. Clara stumbled backward, mouth agape, captivated and terrified. The alpha wolf before her radiated raw, unimaginable strength. She could feel the heat of him, the controlled ferocity, the scent of wild dominance. Her pulse raced in tandem with his, and every instinct screamed both fear and longing. The attackers froze for only a heartbeat before charging. Colton's claws flashed, striking with lightning precision. Men tumbled, yelps and curses filling the air as he moved faster than any human could, a blur of teeth and fur and lethal intent. Clara's knees went weak. She watched, helpless and entranced, as the man she had been drawn to, the one who terrified and captivated her, became something far beyond human. Then, one of the attackers sneered, bleeding from a shallow gash. "You think this is just about him? Your cousin had a secret, one you'll never see coming." The words sliced through the chaos. Clara froze, mind whirling. Her cousin? Secret? Every fiber of her being tensed with dread and curiosity. Colton's growl deepened, low and threatening, ears pinned back, teeth bared. His eyes, glowing like molten amber, scanned the canyon for the voice, and Clara felt the magnetic pull of his gaze sweep over her. The proximity, the raw strength, the danger. It all hit her at once, and she realized she was trembling with more than fear. Desire, impossibly mingled with awe and terror, coursed through her veins. The gang, realizing they were no match, retreated hastily, vanishing into the canyon's shadows. The echoes of their curses lingered like smoke, their last words crawling into Clara's bones. "Your mate will betray you." Colton shifted back, human again, towering over her, chest heaving, eyes still glowing with residual feral power. His hand found hers, strong and possessive, and for a fleeting moment, the fire of desire and danger intertwined. Clara's lips parted slightly, heart hammering, as she felt the pull of him, dangerous, consuming, irresistible. The canyon was silent once more, but the tension lingered. Clara's mind raced, torn between fascination and fear. Colton's secret had revealed itself, terrifying and seductive in equal measure. And those final words of the gang, they planted a seed of dread she couldn't ignore. Colton's voice, low and dangerous, rumbled in her ear. "They know more than they should, and so do you now. Be ready, Clara. The secret's coming for us. Your cousins, mine, ours are far from over." The storm hit like a living thing, rain lashing against the roof of the cabin and wind whistling through the cracks in the walls. Clara pressed herself against the wooden door, listening to the chaotic symphony outside, the roar of the tempest mingling with her own racing heartbeat. Colton's presence beside her was a solid anchor, amber eyes glinting in the flickering candlelight as he adjusted the shutters with a commanding precision that made her pulse stutter. "You're trembling," he murmured, voice low and rough, his gaze scanning her face as though reading her soul. His hand brushed hers, deliberate, electric. The storm outside was wild, but the heat between them burned far hotter. Clara's chest tightened as she realized she couldn't resist the magnetic pull any longer. She stepped closer, body humming with anticipation, every nerve alight with desire and fear. Colton's eyes darkened, amber glowing with the tension of restraint barely held. The air between them was thick, suffocating, as he leaned down, lips brushing hers in a tentative, searing kiss. The world contracted to the warmth of his body, the scent of him wild and intoxicating, and the taste of danger and desire mingling on her lips. Every barrier they had erected, fear, mistrust, restraint, shattered with the next stolen touch. Her hands roamed over the taut planes of his chest, feeling the raw strength beneath, and Colton's growl, low and approving, sent shivers racing down her spine. Hours passed in a haze of passion, whispered confessions, and raw, intimate connection. Each kiss, each brush of skin against skin, built a tension neither of them could deny. Clara lost herself in him, the protector, the predator, the man who had become the axis of her world in ways she never imagined. After the storm had lulled, Colton pulled her close, cradling her head against his chest. The ferocity of the night lingered in the space between them, leaving them both trembling. His amber eyes softened, vulnerability creeping into their depths. I didn't expect this, he admitted, voice rough. I didn't expect to fall for you. Clara's pulse quickened. Not from desire this time, but from the sharp sting of doubt. And yet, she whispered, voice trembling, you've kept secrets. How can I trust you when my cousin's fate hangs in the balance? Colton's hand tightened around hers, possessive, protective, and desperate. I will protect you, he said, voice low, feral promise threading every word. No matter the cost. The cabin was silent save for the lingering storm's rhythm outside. And then, a sound cut through the quiet, chilling and deliberate. A low, haunting howl. Clara froze, heart clenching. The hair on her arms rose as a primal instinct screamed danger. Colton's amber eyes narrowed, body coiling with alertness. That's no ordinary wolf, he growled, voice taut with warning. Something worse is coming. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of danger and power, and Clara's stomach lurched. Outside, another presence, intelligent, predatory, was moving toward the cabin. Whatever it wasn't here for them to hide. It was here to hunt. The storm had passed, leaving Silver Ridge cloaked in the soft, uneasy glow of early morning. Clara's boots crunched along the muddy streets as she and Colton returned to the town. Her mind swirled with the events of the canyon, the attack, and the night of raw intimacy that had bound them together. Every brush of his skin, every whispered word, haunted her like an addictive echo. Yet the streets, normally quiet, seemed filled with whispers, furtive glances, and veiled judgments. Merchants averted their eyes. Townsfolk muttered under their breath, pausing as Colton passed. Clara noticed the subtle fear that lingered around him, the way even the children hid behind their parents. What did they mean back there? Clara asked, voice low as they walked toward the cabin he had secured. Her gaze flicked to Colton, amber eyes wary, but unreadable. They talk, Colton murmured, jaw tight. About things that happened before you came. Dark events. Things they think I'm responsible for. Clara's stomach churned. Memories of the storm, the near kisses, the fire between them, flashed vividly in her mind. She remembered every tremor of desire, every stolen touch, every moment where restraint had barely held back the heat between them. The intimacy of the past nights only made the present confusion sting sharper. Desire and doubt warred within her, each pulse a reminder that she was irrevocably drawn to him, even as questions gnawed at her. Colton, did you? She began, hesitant, voice barely a whisper. I've done what I must to protect this town, he interrupted, tone low, feral restraint threading every syllable. He stepped closer, and her breath hitched as the familiar magnetic pull ignited once more. Their bodies brushed subtly, and Clara felt the old ache of longing return, sharp and consuming, every nerve on fire. But trust, fragile and frayed, wavered. Every whispered rumor, every sidelong glance, planted seeds of doubt. Could the man she desired so intensely, the man who had shown her fire, protection, and forbidden intimacy, truly be the one to trust? Or was he hiding darker truths, shadows she couldn't yet see? Her thoughts were interrupted by the sudden arrival of a small package, sealed and unmarked. Hands trembling, she opened it to reveal a journal. Her cousin's handwriting sprawled across the first page. Her stomach twisted as she read the initial entries, realizing that someone was manipulating Colton, guiding his actions in ways neither of them fully understood. Her pulse raced, her mind spinning. The intimate connection they had shared, the fire of desire, and the protective magnetism, all tangled with a growing dread. Someone was pulling strings, and the enemy wasn't far away. It was closer than she realized. Clara's amber gaze lifted to meet Colton's, and in that moment, the truth struck her like a blade. The danger threatening her cousin, and Colton, was in Silver Ridge, hiding in plain sight. Whoever it was, it knew exactly how to strike, and they were already inside the walls of her life. The morning sun filtered weakly through the curtains of the cabin, but Clara barely noticed. Her mind was tangled in the pages of her cousin's journal, the words revealing manipulations and hidden truths she hadn't expected. Each line deepened the gnawing realization that Colton, the man who had consumed her thoughts, who had been her protector and temptation, had kept a crucial truth from her. She paced the small room, leather journal clutched in her hands, as flashes of his amber eyes and their nights of fiery intimacy collided with the gnawing ache of doubt. His secrecy, meant to shield her from danger, now felt like betrayal. Every whispered promise, every feral growl and protective gesture, was tainted by the unknown threads he had withheld. Colton appeared at the doorway, his amber gaze instantly locking on hers. "Clara." His voice was low, restrained, dangerous. "We need to talk." "Talk?" she spat, voice trembling with frustration, fear, and lingering desire. "How can I talk when you've been hiding everything from me? Everything." Her chest heaved as her eyes glimmered with unshed tears. He stepped closer, the heat from his body washing over her like a living flame. Every instinct in her screamed to reach for him, to melt into the danger and desire he radiated, but every word, every secret he had kept, fueled the fire of her doubt. "I did it to protect you," he said, voice fierce, amber eyes blazing. "Every choice, every lie, was for your safety." Clara's hands shook as she slammed the journal onto the table, the leather thudding against the wood. "I can't keep pretending your secrets are protection. I'm not a child, Colton. I deserve the truth." Their bodies nearly collided as the argument escalated, the tension between them a living, almost erotic force. Each step closer sent shivers through her, the suppressed desire sparking a dangerous energy. His hand brushed hers as he gestured emphatically, the contact electric, almost unbearable. She could feel the restrained power beneath his skin, the raw dominance that had captivated her, and the ache for him flared anew. "Clara, listen," Colton began, but she shook her head, heart pounding, unable to stop herself from pushing him away with the sheer force of emotion. The moment snapped like a frayed wire. Clara stormed from the cabin, the wind whipping through her hair, leaving Colton standing in tense, raw frustration, his chest heaving, amber eyes glinting with feral hunger and unspoken need. No sooner had she disappeared into the wilderness than Colton sensed another presence, something primal, menacing, moving silently through the forest toward him. His wolf instincts flared, teeth bared, muscles coiled, every nerve alert. From the shadows, a rival alpha emerged, radiating lethal intent. Amber eyes locked on Colton, growl low and guttural, and the air between them shimmered with imminent confrontation. Danger was close, and Clara, unaware, was walking straight into it. Clara's boots scraped against loose stones as she fled deeper into the forest, heart pounding with the force of betrayal, fear, and the lingering pull of desire she couldn't shake. The journal's revelations twisted through her mind, each step fueling the ache of doubt and the fire of longing she had tried to suppress. She didn't hear the faint snapping of branches behind her until it was too late. A trap, cleverly concealed, sprang beneath her feet, a net of thick ropes hoisted high, pulling her off balance and suspending her helplessly among the trees. Panic surged, her lungs burned, and the wind carried a soft, taunting growl that made her stomach twist. Colton's senses flared instantly. Amber eyes narrowed, body tense, every muscle coiled like a spring ready to strike. His wolf instincts took over, scenting the air, tracing the faintest hint of her panic. The magnetic pull that had always drawn him to her now burned into a feral urgency. She was in danger, and every nerve in his being demanded he reach her. He tore through the forest, moving with impossible speed, every step pounding with raw, predatory power. The wind whipped around him, scattering leaves and dirt like sparks from a fire. Clara's faint cries for help reached him, and he let out a guttural roar that echoed through the trees, vibrating with warning and raw desire. When he finally reached her, the sight stole her breath away. Colton's wolf form shimmered under the dappled moonlight, muscles rippling, teeth bared, eyes glowing amber with unrestrained feral intensity. The moment he shredded the ropes, freeing her, the air between them became electric, a mix of desperation, relief, and the raw, carnal desire that had simmered beneath every stolen touch. Clara fell into his arms, breathless, heart-hammering, as he pressed her close. Their lips collided in a searing, desperate kiss, fingers tangling in hair and clothing, bodies pressed together with an urgency born of terror and desire. The danger had made the pull between them undeniable, every second of closeness amplifying their need. "I thought I lost you," Colton growled, his wolf instincts still simmering beneath the surface, voice rough, tinged with possessive hunger. His hands roamed with protective possessiveness, every touch igniting fire along her nerves. Clara clung to him, torn between fear, exhilaration, and the throbbing, almost painful intensity of attraction. I couldn't," she whispered, voice trembling. "I can't lose you again." As their reunion burned with passion, the distant sound of movement froze them mid-embrace. A dark figure emerged from the shadows, muscles taut, eyes gleaming with malicious intent. The rival wolf who had haunted Colton's past stood there, predatory, confident, and dangerously close. With a low, chilling growl, the rival wolf stepped closer, amber eyes locking on Clara. "I'll take what's yours, mate or not." The night air over Silver Ridge had never felt so heavy. A storm of chaos erupted as the rival wolf descended upon the town, silent and merciless until destruction could no longer be contained. Windows shattered, horses reared, and terrified townsfolk scattered into alleys and side streets. The scent of fear and blood mingled with the earthy tang of the forest wind, gripping Clara's senses in a vice of dread and adrenaline. Colton, shifting fluidly between man and wolf, tore through the streets with lethal precision. Amber eyes glinting, teeth bared, and muscles rippling beneath taut skin and fur. He became a blur of feral grace. Every movement screamed dominance, power, and protective instinct. Clara ran alongside him, heart racing, not just from fear but from the pull of desire she could no longer deny. They reached the town square, where the rival wolf had cornered a group of townsfolk. Colton's growl rose, shaking the very air, and in a surge of raw alpha power, he struck. The fight was a violent ballet of claws and teeth, every motion both terrifying and strangely erotic, as Clara watched the man she loved transform into a creature of pure strength and dominance. In the chaos, Clara stumbled upon a hidden cache, a stack of letters and documents belonging to her cousin. Her hands shook as she read, discovering the truth. Her cousin had been caught in a web of deceit orchestrated by powerful enemies, and Colton had been silently working to protect her and honor the bond of their shared past. Every doubt she had about his loyalty and secrecy melted into an aching clarity. He had risked everything to keep her safe, but the revelation was cut short. The rival wolf lunged with unrelenting ferocity, striking Colton mid-combat. He roared, amber eyes blazing as he was knocked to the ground. Clara screamed, the sound raw and desperate, and ran to him, heart pounding in a chaotic rhythm that matched the fire and destruction surrounding them. Her hands pressed against his chest, feeling the faint pulse beneath his skin, his heat radiating even in the throes of injury. The intimate memory of their previous nights, the stolen touches, whispered confessions, and raw erotic connection flashed through her mind, mixing with fear and the urgent need to act. Desire and desperation collided, every nerve on fire, as she realized she could not lose him, not to this rival, not to fate, not to anything. Colton's lips parted in a groan, amber eyes flickering between the feral and the human, and he murmured, almost pleading, "Clara, you have to." Bloodied and struggling to remain conscious, he stilled in her arms, leaving Clara with an impossible choice: save the alpha who had captured her heart and body, or flee to protect herself from the rival wolf's lethal presence. Her pulse surged, torn between survival and love, as the shadows closed in around them. The aftermath of the attack left Silver Ridge trembling, fires smoldering in alleyways and townsfolk whispering rumors that prickled Clara's nerves like cold steel. Inside Colton's cabin, however, a different storm raged, the tempest of raw desire, lingering fear and unspoken truths between them. Colton lay on the bed, muscles tense even in semi-consciousness, amber eyes flickering open as Clara pressed a damp cloth to his forehead. His strength was dimmed by the injury, yet every pulse of life beneath her hands reminded her of the fire that always simmered beneath his controlled exterior. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured, voice rough and low, almost pleading. "I won't leave you," Clara whispered, heart thundering. Her fingers brushed against his chest, tracing the taut lines of muscle, feeling heat and strength that made her pulse spike in ways she hadn't anticipated. Desire flared violently, entwined with fear and relief, creating a tension that was almost unbearable. As night fell, the intimacy between them ignited. She leaned closer, lips brushing against his jaw, neck, and shoulder, the scent of him intoxicating her senses. Colton groaned, instinctively pulling her closer, bodies pressing together in a mix of desperation and desire. The electric closeness sent shivers racing through Clara, her breath hitching, every nerve alight. Their reunion was fiery, primal, and deeply erotic, each touch a promise and a claim, a mixture of vulnerability and power. Yet the emotional weight of their past nights, the betrayals, and the unspoken truths lingered beneath every caress. They moved together with a hunger fueled by trust newly reforged, every whispered word and shiver of skin pressing them toward an intimacy that was as much emotional as it was physical. Morning came with tension still coiled like a snake. The town's whispers had reached her ears, lies planted by the rival wolf, painting Clara as a conspirator, sowing seeds of distrust that chilled her blood. Every glance from townsfolk was a reminder that their enemies were not only powerful but cunning, striking at heart and mind alike. Seeking clarity, she ventured outside, only to freeze mid-step. Voices carried across the wind from the shadows. Colton was not alone. She crouched behind a barrel, straining to hear, heart hammering as the conversation unfolded. "They think the alpha is weakened," hissed one voice. "But if she knows too much, we'll use her." Clara's blood ran cold. Every fiber of her being screamed that this was no ordinary threat. Someone was plotting in secret, weaving lies and danger into every step they took. And now, she had overheard it. Clara's amber eyes widened, heart racing. The conspirators' next move was already in motion, and it would strike at the one thing she held most dear, Colton, and the fragile trust between them. The night air over Silver Ridge was heavy with secrets, tension, and the scent of fear. Clara moved cautiously through the shadows, the journal pressed tightly in her hands. Every step she took was measured, every glance over her shoulder sharpened by the knowledge that danger lurked not only in the forest but in the very heart of the town. The rival wolf waited in the abandoned warehouse at the edge of town, tall and imposing, amber eyes flicking with a mixture of calculated menace and reluctant respect. Clara approached with slow, deliberate steps, her mind racing. Every instinct screamed against this alliance, yet the tantalizing possibility of finding her cousin and uncovering the truth behind the manipulations drove her forward. "You came," the rival wolf murmured, voice low and deliberate. "I didn't think you would trust me." Clara swallowed, chest tight with both apprehension and desire. "I have no choice," she admitted, eyes locking on his, noting the subtle flex of muscle and controlled power. Every inch of him radiated danger, and yet, there was something intoxicating about the balance of dominance and unspoken restraint. Unseen, Colton watched from the ridge above, amber eyes burning with jealousy, possessiveness, and barely contained desire. The sight of Clara so close to another alpha, her body brushing his, her hands communicating trust and tentative intimacy, ignited a fire in him that was as feral as it was consuming. His growl, low and warning, vibrated through the night air, sending a shiver down Clara's spine when she instinctively sensed it. The rival wolf led her through hidden passages revealing clues about her cousin's captivity, cryptic messages, hidden caches, and subtle hints of the power players manipulating events. Every discovery brought Clara closer to the truth, yet with each step, the tension between the three of them intensified. Every glance, every lingering touch, every shared breath was charged with desire, fear, and the unspoken boundaries that threatened to snap. "I can help you," the rival wolf said, voice smooth, eyes glinting. "But trust me completely, or risk losing everything." Clara's pulse raced. Could she risk her life and her heart on someone who was both ally and potential enemy? Every instinct screamed caution, yet the allure of answers was irresistible. They were making their way to a concealed exit when the shadows shifted. From behind, a dark figure lunged. The movement was swift, silent, and deadly. Clara barely had time to react as the edge of a blade, or perhaps a claw, sliced the air dangerously close. Pain and shock surged through her body as she realized too late. Someone she thought she could trust had betrayed her. Clara's scream echoed through the night as she tumbled into mortal danger, and the truth of the betrayal left her gasping, heart racing, and utterly exposed. Pain tore through Clara's body as she hit the ground, the world a blur of shadow, firelight, and the sharp tang of blood. Her vision swam, heart hammering in a frantic rhythm as adrenaline screamed through her veins. She barely had time to process the betrayal before a blur of amber eyes and coiled power slammed into the attacker. Teeth bared, muscles taut and feral. Colton had arrived, his growl ripped through the night air, reverberating against the buildings of Silver Ridge like a living force. In a heartbeat he was there, shifting seamlessly between human and wolf, a perfect blend of raw power, speed, and predatory grace. Every movement screamed dominance and protection, sending shivers of terror, and something dangerously close to desire through Clara. He tore through the assailant with lethal precision, and within moments, the threat was neutralized. Colton knelt beside her, amber eyes scanning her face for injury. "Clara," he growled, voice rough, feral, trembling with anger and relief. "Stay with me." She felt the magnetic pull of his presence, the heat of his body, the strength that had captivated her from the moment she had met him. In the aftermath of danger, their emotions collided: fear, relief, longing, and raw desire. Hands clutched, lips met in a searing kiss, desperate, urgent, and charged with the tension of mortality. Their bodies pressed together, seeking solace, release, and affirmation that neither would let the other go. Clara's fingers traced the ridges of his jaw, memorizing the man beneath the wolf, the protector beneath the predator. Colton's hands roamed over her, possessive and tender in turns, and the intimacy was a whirlwind of passion heightened by terror, every caress a statement of ownership, desire, and vulnerability. As their breathing slowed, Colton drew back slightly, amber eyes glinting in the candlelight. "There's something I've never told anyone," he confessed, voice low, almost a growl. "Not a wolf, not a human, not even you, until now. Something about me, about why they're after me, why I've had to hide so much." Clara's pulse quickened, mind racing with both anticipation and fear. His revelation promised truth she wasn't yet ready for, but desperately needed to hear. Before he could continue, the cabin door creaked and a shadow fell across the threshold. A figure stepped forward, framed by moonlight, voice smooth and deliberate. "Colton Kane," the stranger said, tone loaded with authority and menace. "I know who's truly after you, and it's not who you think." Colton's amber eyes narrowed, body coiling like a spring, while Clara pressed herself against him, pulse hammering with fear and desire. The stranger's revelation promised answers and danger, at a cost neither of them could yet imagine. The stranger's presence filled the cabin with an unspoken tension, a storm coiling tightly around Colton and Clara. Amber eyes flared with controlled ferocity as Colton assessed the threat. His jaw tightened, every muscle taut, a predator ready to strike. Clara could feel the raw heat radiating from him, every inch of his body vibrating with lethal intent, and with the magnetic pull that had haunted her since the moment they met. "You're challenging me," Colton growled, voice low and commanding, the feral edge sending shivers down Clara's spine. The stranger's eyes glimmered with dangerous amusement. "It isn't personal," the figure replied, "but Alpha's claim must be tested. The winner takes everything." Clara's pulse spiked. She understood the stakes immediately. Colton's life, the safety of Silver Ridge, her cousin's freedom, and the fragile bond between them, all hung on this confrontation. Fear and desire warred inside her, each heartbeat echoing the tension in the room. Colton's gaze softened briefly as it fell on her. "Stay close. You're my mate. That means nothing can touch you," he said, the possessiveness in his voice igniting a deep, consuming need within her. Clara swallowed hard, every nerve alive as she moved closer, drawn irresistibly toward him. Their bodies brushed. The intimate proximity set a fire between them that was almost unbearable. The stranger led Colton to the edge of the forest clearing, where members of a rival pack had assembled. Muscles tensed, claws glinting, teeth bared. This was more than a test of strength. It was a battle of dominance, a ritual that would decide not just leadership but survival. Clara followed at a safe distance, eyes locked on Colton as the heat of desire mingled with dread. When the first clash erupted, Colton moved with lethal precision, a blur of amber and muscle, dominance radiating from every fiber. Clara's breath hitched as she watched him command the battlefield, his alpha presence intoxicating and terrifying. Every growl, every strike, every controlled motion of his body reminded her of the danger and the raw, erotic pull that only he could inspire. Amidst the chaos, Clara discovered a subtle clue, a pendant glinting around the neck of one of the stranger's lieutenants, that tied this challenge directly to her cousin's imprisonment. Shock and fury mingled in her chest, adding urgency to the erotic tension coursing through her. The fight intensified, Colton's every move a claim of dominance, a protective assertion over her and the town. His eyes briefly met hers, a silent promise of possession and survival, igniting her desire so fiercely that it was almost overwhelming. The final strike drew near. Colton's muscles coiled, claws extended, growl deep and resonant, and Clara realized the chilling truth. The next moment would decide everything. Winner takes all. Loser loses everything, including the bond that had consumed them both. The clearing echoed with the roars, growls, and clashing of claws, every movement a testament to Colton's alpha strength. The final strike had landed. The rival wolf collapsed, defeated, amber eyes wide with disbelief as Colton stood over him, chest heaving, fur matted and dominance radiating like a living, tangible force. Victory was his, but the cost was steep. Silver Ridge bore the scars of battle, smoldering debris, shattered windows, and frightened townsfolk peering from hiding spots. Clara ran into his arms, the weight of relief, fear, and desire crashing into her like a wave. Their lips met in a desperate, searing kiss, the culmination of weeks of suppressed longing, adrenaline, and the near-constant threat of death. Every touch, every caress, every shiver of skin against skin was amplified, raw, and unrestrained. Colton's hands roamed possessively, claiming, grounding, and igniting a blaze of erotic intensity that left her breathless and trembling. "I can't lose you," he whispered against her neck, voice rough and husky. "Not now. Not ever." Clara clung to him, heart hammering, as the truth of her cousin's fate and the tangled web of betrayal and secrecy finally unfolded. She discovered that the rival wolf had been manipulated by someone within Silver Ridge itself, a hidden figure exploiting fear and old grudges to control events from the shadows. Her cousin's imprisonment had been orchestrated as leverage against Colton, a cruel strategy to test his loyalty and protectiveness. Emotionally raw, they collapsed together beneath the moonlight, passion and relief merging into a singular consuming night of connection. Every touch, every kiss, every whispered confession was both a surrender and a claim. Desire became confession. Vulnerability became power, and their intimacy was as much a declaration of trust as it was of love. Dawn crept over the horizon, painting Silver Ridge in soft gold, and for a moment, the world seemed to pause. Clara pressed against Colton, tracing the lines of his jaw, memorizing the man behind the alpha, the protector behind the predator. Every secret, every fight, every stolen night had led them here. Yet, even in the aftermath, danger lingered. Clara's amber eyes scanned the horizon, heart tightening with unease. The victory had revealed more than it had solved. A shadow detached itself from the tree line, silent, deliberate, familiar. Someone closer to home than either of them could have anticipated, their intentions unreadable but undeniably deadly. The sense of foreboding wrapped around them like a living thing, signaling that the final chapters of their story were only beginning. The sun had barely risen over Silver Ridge, but the tension in the town was palpable. Clara stood at the edge of the rebuilt town square, journal clutched to her chest, mind racing. Every revelation of the past weeks had led to this moment. The attacks, the betrayals, the passionate nights with Colton, all threaded together into a dangerous web she had yet to fully understand. Her gaze flicked to Colton, who stood nearby, muscles taut, amber eyes scanning the horizon. Even after the intense erotic reunion of the previous night, a shadow lingered between them, a mix of distrust and unspoken truths. Clara's pulse quickened as desire battled suspicion. Every step toward him was an exercise in restraint. Every accidental brush of his hand ignited the embers of longing that neither of them could deny. "I don't know who to trust anymore," she admitted, voice low, trembling, heart torn between the man who had protected her and the secrets she had uncovered. Colton stepped closer, amber eyes softening with possessive fire. "You can trust me, Clara. Every choice I've made, every risk, it's always been for you." His hand brushed against hers, fingers grazing skin, sending shivers through her. The erotic tension between them crackled like lightning, making the air around them almost unbearable. But trust was fragile. Clara followed the trail of her cousin's journal, discovering shocking truths. The rival wolf was only a pawn, a distraction orchestrated by someone far closer, someone who had infiltrated the town and manipulated events from the shadows. The antagonist's identity hit Clara like a bolt of lightning, tying together every thread of her cousin's imprisonment, Colton's past enemies, and the chaos that had engulfed Silver Ridge. Her heart raced, mixing fear with the lingering fire of desire. She turned toward Colton, wanting reassurance, wanting the intimacy and safety of his arms, but before she could react, a hand clamped over her mouth. A shadow swept her off her feet, dragging her into a hidden room she hadn't noticed before. The antagonist's voice, smooth and chilling, whispered in her ear, "Colton Kane won't save you this time. Not unless he's willing to risk everything." Colton's instincts flared instantly, every muscle coiling, amber eyes blazing with feral fury. He roared into the morning air, a sound of rage, dominance, and possessive desperation that sent shivers down the spines of every hidden observer. His body shifted subtly, wolf power rippling just beneath the surface, every sinew ready to strike, protect, and claim. Clara struggled against the grip, heart pounding, not just from fear, but from the unrelenting raw attraction she still felt toward Colton. Her pulse raced as she realized that desire and danger were now inseparable, every heartbeat a test of trust, courage, and connection. Clara's amber eyes met Colton's from across the room. He could feel her, see her, even through the walls. The antagonist's grip tightened, and the room seemed to shrink around her. Colton's control over his alpha instincts, his desire, and his protective fury would be tested like never before, and the next move could determine not just their lives, but the fate of Silver Ridge itself. The room seemed to close in around Clara, shadows stretching like claws as the antagonist's grip tightened. Her pulse raced, heart hammering, not only with fear, but with the simmering desire she had long tried to suppress. Every nerve was alive, every sense heightened by the danger and the lingering electric memory of Colton's presence. Outside, Colton's amber eyes glowed fiercely through the cabin window. He had tracked the threat with unwavering precision, every muscle coiled, his wolf instincts flaring with lethal intensity. The ground shook as he shifted fully, merging feral strength with human cunning, a predator honed by countless battles, every sinew a weapon, every growl a promise. He crashed through the doorway in a blur of power, and the antagonist froze, eyes wide at the alpha's ferocity. Claws raked wood, teeth gleamed, and Colton's controlled, deadly precision left no room for error. Every movement was calculated, instinctive, and deadly, yet beneath the dominance there was an unmistakable erotic energy, an invisible thread connecting him to Clara, driving him forward with possessive urgency. Clara's chest heaved as Colton approached, his presence overwhelming in every way. Desire and relief collided violently within her, fueling a raw, unrestrained attraction. When he pulled her into his arms, lips crashing against hers, it was more than a kiss. It was a declaration, a melding of hearts, bodies, and souls. Every touch, every shiver, every gasp was the culmination of weeks of tension, fear, and longing. They surrendered to each other fully, passion and tenderness intertwining in a climactic union that solidified their fated bond. Amid the intensity, Clara's mind raced, piecing together the final secrets. Her cousin's ordeal was revealed, a tangled web of betrayal and sacrifice, orchestrated to test the limits of loyalty, love, and alpha dominance. With Colton by her side, she resolved the mysteries that had haunted her family and the town. Silver Ridge was safe, for now, but the price of truth had tested them both, emotionally and physically, in ways that would leave marks long after the dust settled. Finally, in the quiet aftermath, Colton held her close, amber eyes softened with unspoken promises. "You're mine," he murmured, possessive yet tender, and Clara, heart pounding and body alight with satisfaction and relief, allowed herself to fully surrender, to love, desire, and the alpha who had always been hers. But as dawn broke, the subtle shift in the wind carried a whisper of unease. At the edge of the forest, a shadow moved with deliberate grace, unseen yet unmistakably dangerous. A faint growl, barely audible, hinted that the story was far from over. The peace they fought so hard to achieve might be fleeting. A new unseen threat loomed, closer to home than either of them could imagine, leaving Silver Ridge and their fated bond vulnerable once again.